skal tilbage her til studiet. Vi har nemlig tidligere i dag besøg af Israels ambassadør i Danmark, Barukh Binah. Jeg startede med at spørge, hvordan han ser på, at så mange civile palæstinensere har mistet livet i den igangværende konflikt.
Let me say up front, we're sorry, we regret every loss, every death. We are not there to kill Palestinians. We are there to protect our country. I have here a list of those who fell, made by Al Jazeera. Al Jazeera is a well-known network, not necessarily pro-Israeli. I look at the ages. There are kids, to be sure. There are children, there are women. But the majority are men between I would say, the fighting age. I'm not saying that all of them were warriors, were fighters.
But indeed, I mean, we all know about the 4 boys who were killed by rocket shells just a couple of days ago on a beach.
It is investigated. We don't know how it happened yet, but
the women have been killed?
Women had been killed, but they were all, in a way, they were in the wrong place in the wrong time. And the question is, who put them there?
Right.
And the one who put them there is Hamas, who tells them by all kinds of ways, don't you dare to leave. We want you there as human shields.
But one thing that Israel, and you obviously represent official Israel, is always prone to underline is that you have a moral army. Let's just listen to your Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu. He said this quite recently. It's in Hebrew.
צה"ל הוא צבא מוסרי מאין כמוהו. הוא איננו שואף לפגוע אפילו בחף מפשע אחד. אפילו באחד. אנחנו פועלים רק נגד מטרות טרור.
And this phrase beggars the one question: what is moral about killing civilians?
My counter question is, what is moral about presenting citizens, civilians, children, women in the line of fire as Hamas do? What is the difference? The difference is that we have our weapons in order to protect our civilians.
Right.
They protect their weapons with their civilians. And
but Ambassador, you know, I can't answer on behalf of Hamas. I don't sympathize with that movement. But you can answer on behalf of Israel.
I will. And if you let me, and I will say that we are indeed a moral army. We don't take lightly the life of others. We are doing everything that is possible in order to prevent the death of civilians. But it's a campaign. Things happen, mistakes happen. You may even know from your own history here in Denmark when the RAF bombarded by mistake a school, killing 86 children. They wanted the Gestapo headquarters. They made a mistake. It was a mistake.
Absolutely. That was in March 1945.
Exactly.
This is July 2014. And your operation is called Protective Edge.
Right.
Which brings me to ask the question, what is so protective about killing civilians?
No, it's not about killing civilians. The protecting aspect of this operation is that we pursue the rockets, we pursue the missiles, and now we pursue the tunnels. We have discovered 14 active tunnels, and these tunnels are wide. By the way, we were accused all these years, in the last 10 years, that we do not want to we do not allow cement and steel and concrete into Gaza. And we, in the end, succumbed to the pressure and allowed it. That concrete, that steel was used for the tunnels, not to build shelters for the population, not to build houses.
I understand. There are indeed military targets. But still, you also hit civilian targets.
Yes, we do.
And what is lawful? I mean, why do you consider it, seen from an Israeli perspective, lawful to target Palestinian civilians and destroy civilian property?
Okay, we do not target the civilians. Let me be very clear on that. Civilians get killed, but we're trying not to, and we are warning ahead of time, losing the edge of surprise. Sometimes we will call them by phone or text them or send them leaflets and saying, this house is going to be targeted within 4 hours. You have 4 hours to escape.
You are at fight. I mean, you're indeed at a very bloody lockerhead with Hamas, and yet you refuse to actually hold negotiations with them. Why? They are your enemy.
Well, because they're not just an enemy. There is a kind of a Western approach that says, well, since you have an equation, there must be an A and a B. But the A says that we have 2 national movements that disagree with one another, and we can sit down. The B says, no, the Jewish national movement has no right because the Jewish people have no right. The Palestinian Authority accepts us as a rightful debater. The Hamas does not. They want they want, and their charter is very accurate about that.
Absolutely, denying your existence. On the other hand, you like to present yourself as a mature, pluralist democracy.
Indeed.
Why do you not shake hands with Hamas and say, look, okay, let's talk about this. Maybe you don't recognize us initially, but we remember back in the day when Begin and ambassadør talked to each other. At first they were enemies, and they ended up striking a perfect peace agreement.
Which only goes to the benefit of the Prime Minister and of the then Prime Minister and of the then President of Egypt. I was one of those who cheered Sadat as his motorcade passed through the streets of Jerusalem. The first thing Sadat did was to say that the psychological barrier is 70% of the conflict. And I hereby recognize Israel. We cannot take this chance. We have to work with those who recognize us, and the Palestinian Authority is the official representation of the Palestinian people.
But the people inside Gaza have opted for Hamas. They are their official representatives.
So you
you have 1.7 million people living right next to major Israeli cities, and they're posing a challenge to you because of all the rockets coming from inside Gaza. Why don't you find a viable solution rather than just fighting?
Well, I think that the first solution is, the first step on the road to solution is to put an end to the rockets, to the missiles, to the mortars, to the tunnels, to the killing, to the kidnapping, and then we can sit down with the Palestinian Authority, not with Hamas. We discuss things with our enemies, that's true. The PLO was a bitter enemy until they recognized Israel. Then they stopped being the old PLO.
I know that history. I'm sure many of our viewers also do that. But you know that Hamas would probably say, look, if you lift your sanctions, if you allow our fishermen outside your 3-mile border, etc., if you give us the opportunity of having an international airport, maybe we would start thinking of the Zionist state as less an aggressor, more as a friend.
Well, we tried that in the past. Every now and then we lift some sanctions or some, make some amendments, and they're always met with treachery and with double talk and with attacks on
So
Israel.
you don't have a partner for peace?
We do have a partner of peace, and this is the Palestinian Authority. They're the official representatives of the Palestinian people, and we would like to go back to negotiations with them.
Mahmoud Abbas has not been able to change Hamas in that direction. I know he's not Hamas, obviously, but he hasn't been able to actually get them in your direction. I mean, Gaza is not going to go away. And maybe you can fight them down this time, but what in 1 year, 2 years' time? There's still going to be bitterness. There's still going to be a lot of grievance on the Palestinian side, so it may erupt again.
Adam, we certainly do not want to have to return to Gaza, and we did that several times, and indeed each time we pulled out, each time we withdrew, they rearmed, and they started again. Our hope is that together with other countries, like-minded countries, like Egypt, like other Middle Eastern countries, the provision of arms from Iran to Hamas through the sea, through the desert, and so on, will stop. When they realize that they do not have the power to continue harassing us, maybe they will agree to allow Abu Mazen, Mahmoud Abbas, to resume There's a big question.
There's a big question. There are many maybes, maybe ifs. So it just brings
We cannot work in the world of certainties.
No,
it does not exist.
I realise. I just read a quote a couple of days ago by Yaakov Amidror, former Israeli national security advisor. You know him. And he said that the only way, I'm just quoting, the only way to ensure a complete end to rocket attacks would be to retake Gaza and be there for 6 months or a year to clean it out. Well, if you follow his advice, are you going to reoccupy Gaza?
Well, he is no longer a government official. He's speaking his mind. That's his right. I don't know. I don't want to go into operational and tactical and strategic considerations. Let me just say that when the UK was bombarded by missiles, by the V1 and the V2, until the British and the Americans actually occupied the bases in Peenemünde, not too far away from Denmark, by the way, the V1 and the V2 never stopped. And so I don't know if that means that in the end we'll have to go into every single little basement here, there and then, but we will have certainly to somehow scorch their awareness.
But it seems to be a problem that just doesn't want to go away.
So what? Do we give up because they do not give up?
But don't you change your tactics? Don't you say, look, we have enough of this fighting. We need to talk to you. We need to recognize you.
I think it was tried before, and it was successful with Abu Mazen, and it will be successful with him in the past. In the meantime, as you may well know, they use every trick in the book and tricks that are not in the book.
This extremely bloody clash between you and the Palestinians inside Gaza, what do you think it does to the long-term objective of obtaining peace between you and the Palestinians? Because those in the West Bank, they're also looking towards what's going on.
Henry Kissinger once said that it's very dangerous to make a forecast, especially about the future. So I don't know where it will lead us. I know what we want. We want to live in peace. We want to live in quiet. We would like to live side by side with a government, with the state of Palestine next to the state of Israel, in peace and security. This might be a kind of a shock to the awareness of the Palestinians in Gaza, that they cannot and should not live under Hamas, that they should reach out and restore Abu Mazen and the Palestinian Authority, with whom we can have a dialogue. If this is the way it will go, I think that it was not in vain. If it does not, I'm afraid I have to say that they will find us prepared and capable and able to defend and protect our country and our citizens.